Hello everyone, my name is Nathy and I'm here to teach y'all how to use Audacity for your podcast. So the first thing I'm going to have y'all do while you're here is actually go to audacityteam.org and download the software if you don't already have it on your computer. Quick note, if you are using Chromebook, for whatever reason Audacity does not work, but if you have a Mac or a Windows, please go to audacityteam.org. I'll give you a little demo of what you should see. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. I highly recommend that you go ahead and click download without MuseHub. If you do click on the button, it's no issue. It just downloads an extra thing that you don't necessarily need. When you click on that link, it's going to go ahead and download to your downloads folder on your Finder or your File Explorer, or at the very top if you're using Chrome or Safari. So go ahead and click on the downloaded file. You're going to go through the setup process on your computer, and then once you have that, you should have it downloaded. So for Audacity, unfortunately, you do have to download this extra library for you to be able to import any audio recordings from your iPhones, or if you're using any audios from like video files. Let's actually go back to audacityteam.org. So I'm going to go ahead, click downloads at the top here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit until I see this FFmpeg library. I'm going to click on this link. From here, there is a tutorial that you can watch if for any reason it's not working for you right now. But basically from here, just make sure you select the correct operating system and then click on that first link. The steps are also written out for you here. From here, you'll just have to scroll down until you see this FFmpeg installer for Audacity, and go ahead and click on the right one. So either for Windows, if you're using a 64, 32, likely a 64, or a Mac for this one. Click on this, it'll download as a file. So it'll download here. You can double click on it. You'll have to go through all of this. You can just hit continue. And then it should automatically let you work within Audacity. If it doesn't, exit out fully out of Audacity and then reopen it, and then you should be able to go ahead and import any of the files. All right, so when you first open Audacity, you'll likely see something that looks like this. You will probably see a pop-up of some kind. So you can just exit out of this. And we're gonna go ahead and go over what we see right away. So right away, the biggest area that we see is this dark gray space. This is where our media files will live once we import them. But for now, it's just empty. So before we actually bring in a file, I do just wanna cover what we see at the top banner here. At the beginning, we'll see all of our playback buttons. So all of these will be helpful if we wanna play or stop our audio. You can also just use your space bar if that's easier, but you do have buttons if you prefer them. You'll also have here your record button. So when we are gonna later in the workshop practice recording, this is the button you would use to just start. So that is a really cool feature in Audacity. Next to your playback buttons, you have your basic tools. Of these 4 tools, we'll only focus on 2, which will be your selection tool. It looks like a little eye, and then your envelope tool that looks like a diagonal line with 2 black circles. These will be the main 2 that we focus on, and I'll go over what they each do in a bit. Next to your tools, you have your little navigation buttons. So you have your zoom in and zoom out buttons, which will be really helpful if you want to get really detailed with editing. And then you do have a few other options here that are just like a quick fix for zooming in or out if in case you did too much of either. Next to all of your zoom buttons, you do have this audio setup option. This will be extremely important, especially if you're using Bluetooth headphones. So if you click on this, you'll get a bunch of menu items. The main one that we focus on will be playback device and recording device. So if you hover over playback device, just make sure that you're using the correct device for your project. So likely it will just be your computer speakers, but if you're using Bluetooth headphones, they should be an option for you here. If you don't see them, but they are currently connected, you may have to just do a rescan audio devices. The system will basically look for that Bluetooth headphone, and then it should appear in the list. For recording, this is if you want to use Audacity to record in-house, you would just go ahead and make sure that the correct mic is being used. So by default, it should just be your laptop, but if you are using an external mic, then you want to make sure that that's the one you're using. And the last thing in this banner that we'll really focus on is just these little levels. So we have a recording level section and then a playback. So for the recording, if you click on the mic and click on Enable Silent Monitoring, this is going to be a really good indication to you that your mic is working. So whatever mic you detected or you selected for your audio setup will be the one that shows up here. If you do not see a green bar, then that means that no mic is being detected and you may have some bigger hardware issue going on, or maybe you just didn't select the correct device. So just make sure that that's, first of all, the thing that you try to resolve. But yeah, if there's no mic being detected, then that's a bigger issue that we unfortunately cannot fix in today's session for you. What's nice about the recording levels is as you are speaking into the mic, you'll kind of see where the levels fall. Typically, it's a good idea to have your mic be, or your levels be between -12 and -6. I recommend each of these level sections have this little circle. Keep that at 100% just so that it's as accurate as possible to see what you're recording at. Below the recording level will be the playback level, and this will be available to you where you can see it once you actually play audio that you import here. And similarly to recording, I'll just show you at what level it is. And so with that, let's go ahead and actually import our first file. There's a couple ways to import. The first one just being the traditional route, you go to File, Import Audio. So if you're someone who prefers this method, go ahead and do that. From here, you're gonna locate your file that you just downloaded. So you'll likely, from this little side menu, you have to go to your downloads folder and just make sure that you're currently on the right folder. So from here, the first thing that we're gonna be using is the introduction. So you can just hit open. The other way that you can import that I personally prefer is by opening up a Finder or a File Explorer menu so you see all of your files here. And then I like to go to wherever my files live. Currently mine are in my downloads folder. And when I locate my folder, I can just do a drag and drop from here if that's easier. If I wanted to do this introduction, I would just click and then drag over to my Audacity, and then I can import that way as well. So right away, we went ahead and I imported the first file. So let's go ahead and listen to it. So I'm gonna hit my space bar.
Hello and welcome to the Badger News Podcast, where we talk about campus life here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. This episode, we are fortunate to have a guest speaker here to talk about a recent hackathon he was involved in. This hackathon is called Mad Data, and it is hosted every year by the popular data science club known as .data. This event is a great opportunity for both computer science and data science students.
Okay.
Here to answer a few questions about it is freshman Christian Parker. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Okay, so that's our entire clip. It sounds really good. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit so I have room to show you how to move this around. So I'm gonna go ahead and from my zoom options at the top here, I'm gonna zoom out. So click on that negative so I can kind of see it a little bit better this way. The first thing that I'm going to teach you how to do is how to move a clip. So currently your clip is set at the very beginning, which is great. But while I'm on my selection tool, that I can just basically hover over the name of any clip. My cursor will become a little hand, and then I can just click and drag this wherever I want it to go. This will make more sense once more clips are introduced, but that's how you would be able to move clips around. And you can also move clips between tracks if you'd like. Next, you can trim clips. Basically, I just hover over any top corner until my icon looks like almost like a bracket key with two arrows on opposite end. And that will indicate to me you're ready to trim. So then you can just click and drag over to wherever you want your clip to be shortened to. If I ever change my mind, I can just click and drag back to bring my clip back to its entirety. So know that that's an option for you. If I'm working on my project and I realize, oh, there's a section here at the very beginning, let me listen to it.
Hello,
there's a tiny little sound. I can actually just click and drag a selection and then just hit my delete key. to permanently delete it. So this is a good task if you have just a tiny little like noise or a little just sound effect that you don't necessarily want. You can just select it and then hit delete, and it will permanently delete it for you. There's no way for you to go back unless you do a Command Z or Control Z to undo. You can also split clips. So if I highlight the section I want to separate from this current clip, I can highlight it. I can then right click and then I can do a split clip, and now these are 3 clips that I can work with. I can also do a split clip between a section here. So like right here, if I put my marker, I can right click, split clip, and now this is its own little section. If that doesn't work for you for any reason and you want to do it the old traditional route, you can just move your marker wherever you want by clicking. You can then go to Edit, Audio Clips, and then Split. If you want to delete a clip, all you have to do is click on it and then just hit delete. And then if you ever just want to undo, I mentioned it earlier, but you can do a Command Z on a Mac or Control Z on Windows to undo one step at a time. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete these 2. And I'll just keep this section here. Let's go ahead and work with volume now. So next to the selection tool, there will be an envelope or envelope tool. It looks like a diagonal line with 2 circles. The moment you click on this tool, your clip will become highlighted. So this just indicates that it's ready for you to kind of change up the volume levels. So to work with this, all you have to do is click a couple of times to start off. So I'm going to click once. You can just click once actually, and then this will decrease your entire clip. But if you want to do more of like transitions, then you'll have to make another click elsewhere. And then these are going to be little like anchors that you can basically click and drag upwards or downwards to increase or decrease the volume. If you realize you don't want a point anymore, you made too many, or you want to just bring back the levels it was at the beginning, you can just click and drag all the way up, and then it will eventually just get rid of those dots. Once you're good with this, go back to your selection tool to make any other edits that don't involve the sound. Next, I'm going to show you how to add some effects. So I assembled my project to look like this. Yours probably looks a little bit different, and that's okay. Basically, I just want to show you all how layering works. So in this case, I have my background music, I have my outro, and all of my speakers essentially on one track. So reminder, you can just click and drag and then just move these to one track if you want, but it's all up to you as to how you prefer this to look. If you want to move any tracks, just so that, again, it's your preference, this won't change the sound anyway, it will just change how you organize your content. You do have these 3 buttons from here, and you can move tracks up, down, or to the very top or bottom. So I have mine set up like this. If I play it, I'm already gonna know this background music is really loud. So this is something where I can definitely use my envelope tool to decrease the sound. But in case anyone is curious, the envelope tool is not great for amplifying like the noise of a clip. So if you would like, if I click on this first one, I'm actually going to go ahead and solo this one, so I just focus on this track and not the rest. So to apply any effect in Audacity, the first thing you have to do is select that clip or clips that you want to have the effect take a hold of. For this one, let me say I just want my introduction to be a little louder. I can select my clip by just clicking and dragging over a selection on that clip, or I can just click once on the actual name at the top to select everything. After I've selected that clip, I just have to go to Effect, Volume and Compression, and the very first one is Amplify. So from here, I can go ahead and amplify this however I want. I can also have a preview if I want to make sure, if I want to kind of hear it before I apply it. You'll notice though, for Amplify, you can decrease the volume as well. So that's where for our background music, maybe we could choose to do that if we wanted to. But if you go over a certain threshold to apply the Amplify, if you're trying to increase the volume, there will be a point where it kind of doesn't let you anymore. So basically this is just the program telling you, hey, if you apply this volume increase, it might start distorting your music or your sound. If you don't care, you can just do allow clipping and it'll let you apply it. But I recommend you only amplify to the point where you can still see that blue button appear. So I'm going to amplify mine a little bit just by 4 and then hit apply. And I'm going to notice that automatically the little waves, the sound waves look bigger. So that's an indication to me that now it's a little louder. So let me go ahead and play.
Hello and welcome to the Badger News Podcast, where we talk about campus
life here. So this is good, and I can tell from my levels here that, it's like
this episode,
closer
we
to
are
between
fortunate to have a
negative
guest
12 and
speaker
negative
here
6.
to talk about a recent hackathon he was involved in.
So one question that gets asked by students is there a way to kind of auto-match loudness between clips? And there's no perfect way to do it, but one method does get close is with the loudness normalization effect. So for that, similar to the last effect, is you first have to highlight what clip or clips you want this effect to apply to. If you go ahead and do a selection, I'll go ahead and select just my guest speaker and my outro. I can go to Effect, Volume and Compression, and then Loudness Normalization. And then with this little dialog, I leave my default settings as is. I don't like to touch them. And then basically I just go ahead and hit apply. Automatically, both of these selected clips increase their volume, and they tried as possible to kind of match, at least for the peaks of the volume. Another thing that I like to add is compression. So if I click on my guest speaker to select that entire clip and I go to Effect, Volume and Compression, and then Compressor. Again, I just go with the defaults. I don't like to touch these, but if you are comfortable with it, you definitely can. I just hit apply, and you'll notice that it very nicely tries its best to compress the louder speaker here to be closer to the one who's being interviewed.
And what we created. It was such a cool experience seeing all the different ideas that teams came up with.
That sounds intense, but super fun.
So you may have to play around with the settings if you're comfortable with it, but that's one way that you can make a quick fix for that. Otherwise, you could go ahead and actually section these out, split them from the clip, and then manually reduce the volume for each of these sections. So for our last effect, this is a really popular requested one, is the noise reduction feature. This feature is really good if you want to get rid of some of that background noise. It will not do magic, unfortunately. So if you are in a scenario where you record it in a really windy space where there's really strong traffic sounds in the background or something loud like that, this will not fix it completely, but it can help a little bit. For this feature, it's a 2-step process. One, you have to give it a sample of what noise you want it to remove. And then the second is to tell it where you want this effect to apply to. I'm going to select the guest speaker one, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And you're going to notice that it's very faint. You may not even see it, but on your own screens, you should be able to see kind of tiny little sound waves in the areas that should be quiet. So I would click and select a little sample. I'm then just going to go to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, and then Noise Reduction. From here, my step 1, it'll tell me right here, is to get a noise profile, which is a sample of that background noise. I click on it, I'm not going to see a difference, but basically the program just went ahead and sampled that background noise. My second step is to tell the program where I want this effect to apply to, and I'm going to go ahead and click once on my name of my guest speaker file, so it selects all of it. And then I'm going to go back to Effect, back to Noise Removal and Repair, Noise Reduction, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I like to leave my options here as default. You can play around with them and preview them if you want, but just know that the more of this effect that you add, the more you risk distortion. So I'm going to hit OK. And then automatically I'm going to see these little sound waves have kind of altered. They're no longer as present. So now if I hear it back.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. So Chris, tell us a bit.
It's a little bit more crisp, and that's what we want. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to record. I recommend you move your marker to be closer to the end, like after your last clip. And you can click on any of these. And all you have to do is just click record. And as long as the mic is being detected, it should just start going ahead and recording whatever you're saying. I just went ahead and clicked on that stop button to stop recording. So you'll notice that for my example, it went ahead and created a new track for my recording. And that's just because my computer records in mono. These other tracks that I've imported here that I have are stereo tracks. So it will just depend on your mic whether it creates a new track for you or it builds off an existing one. So the one thing you do have to know is that if you have a recording in mono, you won't be able to move it to a stereo track. It will have to just stay in its own little track. Okay, and then the last thing we have is to save and export. If you go to File, Save Project, Save Project, or Project Save As, this will let you go ahead and save it as an Audacity file. So for now, we're just go ahead and save to computer. It's going to bring you back to this File Explorer file, this Finder. Go ahead and make sure that you are saving this to a folder that makes sense. I recommend you make a new folder for your class if you don't already have one, but make sure it's saved correctly and make sure that you do give it a name that makes sense. So if this is your interview project, I don't know, follow your guidelines. I would recommend from whatever your project says. But you'll hit save, and this will then go ahead and save it to that folder so that you can come back to it later on. So if I go to my downloads and I look, if I go to my documents and I go to my English 100, I have my interview project. I can double click on this. It'll open it back up in Audacity for me to keep working on it. This is not going to be the file that you will submit for your project unless they're specifically asking you to submit your Audacity file. You will likely then have to submit an MP3 or a WAV file depending on what your project calls for. And to export as that file, you'll have to go to File, Export Audio. Again, I'm going to export to my computer. And then here, make sure that the name is something that makes sense. Make sure the folder is one that you can locate later. And then for the format, change it to whatever your assignment calls for. I leave all of this as is unless your project guidelines state otherwise. But then I can go ahead and just hit export. And as long as I know where I saved it to, I can go back and now this is an MP3 that I can submit to Canvas.